What's up, degenerates? This is Locked In. As per usual, I'm your host, Mason Cameron, at PFF_Mace on Twitter. You already know where to find me. And with me, as usual, my partner in crime, Vishaal Gupta, at Vishaal_Gupta 95 on Twitter. V, we're back. We did over underdogs last night with Vaughn. It was a good time. Are you ready to do it again?
Absolutely ready to get started. We're going to have to hit a lot of these picks today to make up for last night's brutal over in the last seconds, just torching that pick. But that's all right. We'll make up for it for these weekend's picks.
I couldn't believe it watching too. But in a sense, though, I also went away thinking, man, Thursday night football could actually be cool if they didn't put the most washed up matchup on every single week.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
that's interesting. So in case anybody missed it, we did over underdogs last night. Like I said, go check it out on all of our stuff: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch also. And you can find we did really great there in week 7. So you don't want to miss our picks for week 8. We hit perfect in week 7, and we're gonna do it again in week 8. Vaughn was our little magic touch last time, and so we had to bring him back again. But what you guys all actually come here for, which I know, is when me and V hash out NFL versus. So last week on NFL versus, we've been going back and forth. We've been trading some blows, V. So last week we took 2 totals and we split them. The first of which I took home was Atlanta at Cincinnati. The total was 47.5. That game hit 52, and I took the over on that one. And actually, our second game, Seattle at the Los Angeles Chargers, the total for that one was 51.5. That game ended at 60, and VU again took the over on that one, which is funny because a lot of our totals have actually, the winners have been unders this year, which is something that I've been interested in, but is, sometimes just teams getting the hang of it and getting back into the rhythm of a long season. They're full go now. So we are back at it again. You're actually leading me still with 57%, but it's okay. We're going to have another big 2-0 week this week, and we're going to tie it
about all
back
that.
up. We're going to tie it back up. But so we'll get into our picks actually right now for what we have for week 8 on our NFL versus, and I actually have both of the charts up for us. So the first game in which we're picking, we are taking Carolina at Atlanta, and I'm on the side of Atlanta -4.5, and you're on the side of Carolina +4.5, and it's actually moved in some places. You can find it at 4. I found it on FanDuel at 4. So what are you thinking when you see these two teams? This is definitely a surprising line for me, B. When I pushed this line to you, I thought he's for sure not going to take this one. But I can definitely see it when I started peeling back some of the layers. So what are you seeing with why you are on the points for this one?
It's just mainly because this Atlanta team is so weird. I just don't understand what they're doing. I think this has been talked about a lot this week. But Atlanta went down very quickly and by a lot last week in Cincinnati. They were down within the first 5 minutes. They were down 21-0, I think, by the end of the first quarter or early second quarter. And yet Marcus Mariota had 13 total pass attempts in a game where they were trailing by double digits for the majority of the game. I just don't really know what they're doing over there. If you're not, I understand that they probably don't have the best pass offense and they have some success running the ball. Mariota's a good rushing quarterback, so it makes some sense there, but you can't pass the ball 13 times in this league and then expect to, first of all, build a lead and then second of all, sustain a lead. Like 4.5 is a lot of points to cover if you can't throw the ball. It just feels strange to me at that point. And then if they are going to run the ball as much as they are, it's going to be tough this week because they're going up against the Carolina defense that's very good against the run. They're only giving up 4.1 yards per carry, which is like the 5th fewest in the league right now. So I don't know how they're moving the ball, how they're putting up points. And then on the other side, Carolina's offense is not world beaters. They're probably very below average, but they can put up, I don't know, 15 to 20 points maybe. Maybe it's closer to, 16, 17 points. And I think that's enough to not only cover this, but probably win this one outright. I just don't really know what Atlanta is doing right now.
And, I definitely see it too, because I was shocked watching that game, even though I highlighted it in our picks last week that, I thought that this Bengals matchup was a huge mismatch for them because they could take advantage of that secondary. And then the most surprising thing, though, was that when they did fall behind, just like you said, they didn't throw the ball. So I would be lying if I wasn't saying that that's super concerning, and that should be concerning in their locker room, that they don't have the confidence to throw the ball more than, they throw the ball under 20 times when they were down by as many as 3 scores at one point. So that's definitely alarming. But I think that this one just doesn't quite pose that same matchup nightmare as the Bengals did. And one of the reasons behind it is that, Atlanta is undefeated against the spread this year. And a lot of it is because they've taken advantage of teams that were like equal to or worse than them. And they haven't necessarily taken a bunch of favorite spreads to the bank. Like, that's not exactly how they got to this point against the spread. But I think that they take advantage of matchups like this. One of the things is PJ Walker scares me even more than the Marcus Mariota. I have a feeling that this is going to be one of those games where both teams are scared to death of throwing the ball, because even though Atlanta's secondary isn't really that good, their rushing defense has been pretty good. So if PJ Walker is forced to throw, they're going to have some trouble. He's exceptionally conservative. We highlighted it in the NFL versus piece this week that he's dead last in ADOT with a minimum of 50 dropbacks per PFF. And that's just 6.1 yards. That's actually insane. That means that all of his passes, deep balls, short balls, balls behind the line of scrimmage, screens, everything, he's only averaging 6 air yards. That's crazy. A lot of guys are pushing the ball much, much further at a higher efficiency, and he is just not really.
How much do you think that had to do with him having to throw the ball to CMC a lot, because that's how their offense was mainly worked? Whoever was under center, it was a lot about throwing short to CMC. And then last week without CMC, he did push it deep a couple times. Both of his touchdown passes were perfect dimes. He played well last week. I don't think we can deny that from last week without CMC.
No, for sure. They were definitely good. My cat comes up here every time we're talking Panthers. That's hilarious. So I don't disagree with you. I think that a lot of it, though, is that I don't know that their coaching staff has that confidence. Like, yes, he played exceptionally well last week through those two dimes, but he's still extremely conservative. And if Atlanta can get out to some sort of lead like they've established the run pretty well. And now you did highlight it. The Carolina defense has been really good. So that's going to be the one to watch, that if Atlanta can take advantage of that, then we're talking about a different game. But it's going to get interesting at the end of the game when somebody is going to have to throw the ball to win this one. And so it's going to be interesting to see. 4.5 is definitely a little bit higher than I would hope to take it.
A field goal probably would have been a little bit more easier to pick. Yeah.
Right, is much closer. So if anybody's shopping this one, keep an eye out for it all the way up to game time. You're gonna get some movement here, and you're gonna like where it ends up. But then on to our next game of our NFL versus piece for week 8. We are taking, let me switch our graphic here. We are taking the total on Arizona at Minnesota. The total here is 49. You're on the side of the over. I'm on the side of the under. And let me just preface this by saying I completely agree with everything you're going to say, V. My only drawback is Kyler Murray in the Cardinals. Now, I've made the joke 150 times this season about Call of Duty coming out, and I literally just downloaded it too. So I'll see you in the battlefield, Kyler. I'll probably team wipe you, but no, I just have a tough time really trusting this team. I know that they came out, they played their best game of the season last week, but I think that number looks a little bit propped up in the scorecard because they had 2 gimme pick sixes at the end of the half when Randy Dalton just gifted them 14 points to close out the half for literally no reason off balls that I couldn't really explain. So when you think about it, they also aren't that far removed from their worst game of the season, which was 2 weeks ago against a lowly Seahawks defense, which, as great as the Seahawks have played, they are just not the Legion of Boom anymore. Their strength is not their defense, and it hasn't been for years. And they managed just 9 points against them. And the big crux for me is that came on the road. That was the last time they were on the road, and they're on the road again this week. So I know that they're going to get Hopkins. They got him back last week. He played great. He really makes this offense look like a completely different unit. And it makes sense because when you have that alpha wide receiver 1 on the outside, teams have to dedicate resources to holding him down. And that frees up all your guys. So it definitely helps. But until I see it, I'm going to err on the side of caution. And I'm going to go under here just because I don't think they have it in them on the road. Now, I'd love to be proven wrong and start betting Arizona every week because I've been the biggest Arizona hater for like 7 weeks. And maybe the key was they had to get Hopkins back, and now they're back, and now they look good. But what are you seeing when you see the over in this game? I'd imagine a lot of the things that we've already talked about for sure.
Yeah, first of all, I definitely agree with you. This is not a team that can be trusted right now, and that's why, I'm staying away from the spread on this one. When the Lions first came out, I was like, ooh, this looks nice. Cardinals plus 3.5 against a team, maybe an slightly overrated Vikings team. And then I thought to myself exactly what you said. Am I really going to trust Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury to cover even 3.5 points? Nah, that's a little crazy. But just because I don't trust them to cover the spread doesn't mean I'm not going to trust them to put up like 24-ish points in this game, which I feel like is very doable for them given the return of Hopkins, which you mentioned. I think him coming back is going to help Murray a lot. We saw he was much better last week. Definitely his most efficient game. I think he had his highest quarterback rating of the year last week when Hopkins was back. And we also saw the running game look pretty good with Benjamin starting, and I think that's looking like that's going to be the case again this week. I think Connors has already been ruled out, so Benjamin will get the start. And I think he was a little bit more explosive, and I think that running game had a little bit more juice with him there. So I think there's just enough pieces here where I can easily see them getting to about 24-ish points against a below-average Minnesota defense, especially against the pass. They give it the 5th most passing yards per game. So I think there's going to be enough room there for them to score points. And on the flip side, I definitely think, Kirk Cousins can put up about 27-ish, 30-ish points in this one to slightly go over on this game. It's just who on the Cardinals defense do you like? Their secondary is really bad too. Don't let the pick sixes last week fool you. One of them was a dropped ball by Marcus Callaway right into the hands of the defender for a pick six. Like, their secondary is not good. The defense overall is not good. I don't think either team is going to have too much problem putting up points. Just don't trust either of them to cover the spread because both teams are inconsistent. Let's just say that.
And the spread is in such a spot that you're like, oh man, it's
right.
gonna end. It's gonna end, and the hook is gonna be the difference maker.
It's gonna be a 3-point game. I'm definitely seeing a 27-24 type game right here.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one. I'm actually interested to see it because I like seeing high-powered offenses. I'd kind of like to be wrong, but in my heart of hearts, I just can't trust Kyler. Just can't trust Kyler. So we move into our game picks of the week. And our first one is a game from my own heart. I sadly probably won't be up to watch my own Broncos play on Sunday, as I'm usually asleep at whenever the hell they play these games in London. So I have to check the little 12-minute highlight clips after the fact. But we are both sitting here with the London game, Denver versus Jacksonville. And the Jags are the home team on the schedule, and they're probably the home team when you think about it. Shad Khan's been trying to move this team there for years, and they just come out here and they play great there. So, oh man. So we're both on the under here at 40.5, and a lot of it for me is what the hell is going on in the Broncos front office, in the locker room. I am hearing the fact that I get on Twitter and within an hour span, I get a story, that athletic story, that was Russell Wilson is doing high knees for 4 hours on the airplane while people are trying to sleep. And people are like, I think that he's thinking that that's supposed to be like, man, what a leader. That's something Brady would do. Like, no, brother, that's not something Brady would do. Brady would be asleep because you're a rude dick for doing high knees in the aisle of the plane. So, and that's where I thought it ended. So I sent that one out to our group chats. We laughed about it a little bit. Within like 25 minutes, the next story, the poop story.
Well, that one's fake.
Is that one fake?
Yeah, let's not go too deep into that one.
Okay, gosh.
That's a Barstool thing. Let's not dive too deep into
I
what they're
hadn't
putting
looked
out.
that closely into it, but when I saw that, I was like, this man.
It sounds so real, right? Because you would actually
sounds-
imagine Russell Wilson would do something that crazy.
That crazy, where I was like, oh my gosh, get this man out of the altitude is choking off the oxygen to this man's brain. So maybe it's good that he's going to London because maybe they'll figure it out there. But frankly, the running theme for any Broncos game this season has been the under. And it's because they do their part of holding down the opponents, and then they don't do their part of putting any points on the board. So that's why they're essentially a fade them on the spread and take the under pretty much every week, which I hate to say that because this is my team, but that's kind of the Broncos betting strategy right now because they haven't proven that they can do anything offensively. The craziest story you hear is after Brett Rippon starts the last game, people are sitting there going, oh, your offense was either just as bad or better. That means that it's all Russell Wilson's fault.
9 points. It was just as good or not better.
I was like, guys, we did not watch the game if that's what we're coming away with because it's just atrocious. And it all comes down to coaching for sure. So it's going to be an interesting watch to see if they can correct anything moving forward. I've heard rumors that, Hackett might be coaching for his job here. So that's going to be another interesting thing moving forward. But I think that the under is probably the safest play here. I don't think that the rumors of a coach being fired are going to motivate a bunch of guys who don't seem to be bought in anyway. So I don't know. I think the under is just super easy here. Is there anything else that you're seeing when you see the matchup itself here?
No, I'm in total agreement. And all you really need to know as to why we're taking the under, Denver's offense has only scored more than 20 points once this year. And they've only allowed more than 20 points once this year. So if neither team can get to 20 points, how do we go over 40 and a half?
How do we
the
go?
math just doesn't work out there. Just the under. Not much else to say on this one.
The math just doesn't add up. We got the calculator out and the math just doesn't hit.
Nope.
So we're in agreement there. Under 40 and a half for the Broncos and the Jaguars. And on to our next game. I hate to keep having to beat you down here, V. But I'm going to double down with my Cairo Santos pick from last night. If anybody didn't check it out on Over Underdogs last night, we got our first ever kicker prop ever in the history of doing the show. So we were pumped, and I actually brought that into this show too. So in that show, we're taking Cairo Santos under 1.5 extra points made. And a lot of the reason why is I just don't see how Chicago can hope to score on this Dallas defense. Better teams have tried and failed. So, I mean, we talked about it last night, so I won't hit it too hard, but Dallas has allowed just 8 touchdowns all year. That's second fewest in the NFL. Only one time have they allowed 2 touchdowns in a single game. Chicago is bottom third of the league in their own touchdowns. They have just 12 all season. We're in week 8. They have 12 total touchdowns.
How many do the Broncos have? Let's hear it.
We don't have to talk about that. That game is past. That game is past. We leave that one in the past.
All right.
No, but I mean, truth be told, less. They're literally right there. That's how bad it is. And I know that we want the Bears to be good. The Bears came out and they played well. But something's got to give at some point. They're really a struggling team. And on the flip side, I think the Cowboys were extremely conservative in Dak's return. I think they're going to continue to be conservative moving forward until they can really trust that Dak is fully healthy and he can sling it and not re-injure that thumb. So we'll see exactly how that pans out moving forward. But I think 42.5 is just a pretty high number for them here. If the Bears are scoring 7-10, and the Cowboys are scoring 17. So I just don't see it panning out right here. Is there anything that you see when you see these? I know that you gotta hate that I continue to bag on your Bears, but I mean,
it's all right. And this one makes sense to me. They're going to be missing 3 starters on the offensive line, left guard, center, and right tackle. Some of those starters weren't playing very well, so there's a chance the backups could do better. But either way, their offensive line is going to have a very, very difficult time against Micah Parsons and the rest of that D line. So I can definitely see the Bears struggling to put up points in this one. And then I think Dallas will go conservative. As you said, the Bears' run defense is still not good. They were very good on Monday night, but that was the only game where they succeeded against the run. Every other week they've been kind of torched. So it could be a big Tony Pollard game with Zeke looking doubtful in this one. So under makes sense to me.
You know what? And nobody can ever say that we're homers or we pick our picks with bias because we literally jam on our own squads left and right. So you guys hear it here first. This is the most honest review you can get of any team.
Yep.
So on to our next game, though. Let's see. This is actually a game that we have a lot of picks in. We actually have quite a bit of skin on this one. We are both for Las Vegas Raiders at the New Orleans Saints. We are both liking Vegas -1.5 on the road. And you're actually also on the over at 49.5. So V, what are you seeing when you see this matchup between a couple of kind of definitely suspect defenses?
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing a lot of points? I mean, 49.5 almost seemed like a little low, I thought, but it's a huge value there. So what are you seeing when you see the matchup?
Yeah, well, first off, we can start with the spread. This is just another week for New Orleans where they're missing so many guys. Marshawn Lattimore, Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry. Again, all 3 of them are out. It was like the 3rd or 4th week in a row where those guys are missing time, so it's not good for them. The Saints defense is already giving up the most points in the league. I think we've covered this a couple times already this week. And now they're going up against a Las Vegas offense that is clicking right now because they're feeding the ball to Josh Jacobs. This team has scored 29-plus points in 3 straight games, so I don't think they're going to have any difficulties scoring at least 27, 28 points in this game, if not into the 30s. And then the Saints offense, I mean, what can you say? Andy Dalton is fine. He'll get you maybe into the low 20s, mid to low 20s, but he's just not going to be able to win in a shootout, let's be honest. He tried it last week, and it just didn't go well for him. I don't know. This is going to be a big Olave game. So definitely play Olave everywhere you have with all those injuries. I think they're just going to be a ton of points. The Raiders' defense is not good. As many points as they've scored, they've given up those points as well on defense. Points, and then the Raiders should cover pretty easily. I don't know why this is only 1.5. I expected this to go up to closer to 3, the very latest by start of game time.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to hit 3. And, we highlighted this game, like you said, a bunch this week, and you highlighted it with your Josh Jacobs prop at over 108.5 total yards.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes a ton of sense. And especially you just highlighted Olave there too. When we run into these matchups that were like, hey, 49.5 seems like a low number, and 49.5 is not, a low number per se. So when you see these matchups like this, it is sometimes pretty smart to go ahead and, tag some of these together when you're going to take the over, and then you go ahead and take Olave's over, and you go ahead and take Josh Jacobs over. And then because one of those is going to correlate to the next one, and they're going to help contribute to the success of each pick to follow.
Right. So, you're not going to be able to hit the over if a bunch of these guys don't play very well.
Exactly. And when the matchup dictates that type of thing, this is kind of why we say when you break down these matchups, it's good to peel back more and more layers because you can take advantage of more value than just the spread or just the total. Because there's a lot of stuff. Sportsbooks love to put lines out that sometimes you didn't even know you were going to take or have huge value until you really start looking deeper into it. So always shop around, always shop early and often for sure. And I'm right there with you. I mean, I agree. I love it that Ben coined Randy Dalton a couple weeks ago, and I just can't get it out of my head because he's almost like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I have a friend like this where literally at one point you're like, for the first quarter and a half of the last game, I was like, hey, Jameis is probably worried over there on the sideline.
A little bit.
I was like, Andy Dalton's throwing some good passes. And then all of a sudden it fell apart at the seams. And I was like, oh, there's Randy Dalton. And so you're just like, I can't trust them. And when at the start of the season, we saw them as a team that was going to hang their hat on defense and beat you with their running game. And they just have not been able to do that. As we've highlighted, they are one of the worst defenses in the league. And a lot of it comes down to the injuries they've had, but a lot of it comes down to they've just played like shit. They just have not been able to hold down anybody. So I don't see how they're going to be able to hold down this Vegas team that has been, pretty dang good offensively, at least. And they have a lot of weapons and they're using it to their advantage. So I see exactly what you're saying with that one for sure. And then into our next game. This is a game you highlighted yourself, but I was definitely throwing it around. I think that I'll probably end up with it too come Sunday. But you were highlighting the Dolphins at the Lions, and you're liking Miami -3.5. What do you see when you see this matchup?
This is just a game where the Dolphins have too much speed for a bad Detroit team, and defense overall is just, how do you stop Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on the outside? And then you have a Raheem Mostert who's playing surprisingly well, just kind of gashing you up the middle. There's just too much speed on this offense. And I don't know what Detroit's doing. All of that hype over this offseason with Hard Knocks, Dan Campbell, blah, blah, blah. They looked good the first couple weeks. They were scoring points, but their defense wasn't looking good. And now we kind of reversed it where their defense has been all right. It's not bad. They've given up less than 30 points the last two games, which is good for them. But they can't score. They have 6 total points in the last 2 games. And there was a bye week in there. How do you come off of a bye and score 6 points? I mean, that's just bad, bad, bad. The Dan Campbell experience is going to be over very soon. I think everybody will be happier for it. This is a bad Lions team. I'll take the speed of the Dolphins all day.
The Dolphins pose a matchup problem for 90% of the secondaries in the league.
Yeah.
And the Lions are the type of team that is going to have trouble with 90% of receiving cores in the league. So that is just not conducive matchup to like major success for this Lions team, which, like you said, everything has started to fall apart for them. It, even from a conservative sense, 30 points is good for them. Is good for them. Let that sink in. That's how bad this defense has been. And the thing is they were playing teams closely. You know, we thought they were playing for Dan Campbell. And now we have reports that, you know, some of the media think Dan Campbell was on the hot seat. And
well, the ownership had to come out and give him his support. And when that happens, it's over.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. At that point, he's DOA, because that is a 100% a media line that the front office and the ownership is going to feed to the media to calm things down. But they are probably actively shopping on who they want to replace Dan Campbell, because I think they like this roster and they're just not happy with the coaching.
And they're in a huge,
might not be fair.
their next offseason is huge for them because they're going to have a very high draft pick. They have to nail it. It's probably going to be a quarterback. So if you have the quarterback, you have the rest of the roster that they probably like you said, you have to nail the coaching. And if Campbell's not the right guy, you got to do it now. You can't wait.
Right. And frankly, what we're seeing when you think about, sometimes it might not even be all Dan Campbell's fault, or just any defensive coach who comes into a situation where he's getting a young quarterback or a young roster, because a lot of the times what they want is your head guy to have a lot of say in the offense. Mm-hmm. And so he needs to be able to, you know, mold the quarterback that they're going to select. And you got to have the utmost confidence in that guy, that even if we get maybe the third best quarterback or just whatever, maybe we miss, or it, you know, it's an art as much as it is a science to get those guys. So if we're not maximizing his potential to succeed, we're shooting our franchise's potential in the foot.
Right.
So, you know, sometimes you just draw the short straw. Sorry, Dan. I mean, I'd love to see him keep going because I love the knee biter, but
it's not working.
It's just not working out. It's just not working out. They're not really that good against the spread, and they're definitely not that good straight up. So
nope.
So it makes a lot of sense. into our next game. This is one that I'm taking solo here. And a lot of it is because I am just enamored with the Eagles and what they continue to do. So we're looking at Pittsburgh at Philly, and the Eagles are a 10.5-point favorite, and I am very comfortable taking it. I am very comfortable. This might be one of my most comfortable picks of the week. And it's because this Philly team continues to prove that they are the best team in the NFL. Like, I know that we talked up the Bills, and the Bills are still an excellent team, and there's a number of people vying, and I get that Philly plays in a weak NFC, but they continue to prove that they might have the best 53-man roster in the NFL, and they just get better. They are just getting better. So they get Robert Quinn, right?
Yep.
And then reports are out that they're shopping for Kamara.
No, I haven't seen this one.
It might be just smoke and mirrors and rumors in the NFL Twitter scape, because obviously I need to do more vetting because I just ran with the Russell story. But I'm not that surprised when I think about it with how they operate. They like to go and attack that roster. They see an opportunity to be really good, and they want to take full advantage of a window that magically came open for them to win a Super Bowl this year.
Yep.
And when we look at this line, Pittsburgh covered 7.5 road spread last week against the Dolphins. The Dolphins won by 6. Like, they're not like covering these spreads closely. And I would argue that Philly is more than 3 points better than Miami.
Agreed.
And so I just don't see where this fits in. Philly is a significantly better team on both sides of the ball than Pittsburgh. And when you look at spreads that are this big, you need that. You need the objective, better team on both sides of the ball that is going to command the game in order to win spreads like this, because backdoor covers exist. Backdoor covers exist. And I just don't see it happening with this team. On top of everything, the Steelers are wheeling out a rookie quarterback and a number of injuries on the defense. I think Kenny Pickett's going to get real acquainted with the ground, frankly. And it's like, good on him. He might be a good quarterback eventually, but I think that they're probably going to be shopping for another quarterback here because it hasn't worked out. Their whole roster looks pretty weak. Their defense is tattered up. That was going to be what they hung their hat on. It seems like the theme a lot of this year, at least this far into the season, is some of these teams that were supposed to hang their hat on defense are just flat out not doing it. And this is one of them. So I'm right there with 10.5. I don't see any way that Pittsburgh gets more than like 10, 13 points. And I think Philly's going to score like 35. So
you would double the spread and still take it.
I would double the spread and still take it, frankly. So
yeah, makes sense.
On to probably one of the most interesting matchups of the week, which is going to be the San Francisco 49ers at the LA Rams. We're actually heavy skin in this one too. We're both on the side of San Francisco -1.5. And I'm actually feeling the under on 41.5 here. And I know that a large percentage of the money on the tickets is actually on the under here too. What are you seeing when you see this NFC West matchup?
Yeah, this is a pick that I think Vaughn highlighted in our early line value picks earlier in the week, and he really convinced me on this one. He really just talked up how good of a matchup this is for San Francisco against the Rams. And we've seen this, right? I think over the last 3 or 4 regular seasons, Kyle Shanahan has just dominated Sean McVay in this matchup. They're like 7-0 in the last 7 regular season games. Obviously, they lost in the playoffs, but that was only like a 3-point game anyways. So the Niners just match up very well. And I think the big thing here is just the Rams offensive line is just it's in shambles. And now they just lost their left tackle, Joe Noteboom, who was replacing Whitworth. Noteboom wasn't playing very well in the first place, but now he goes down and they have to bring in essentially a third stringer because, again, if Whitworth was there, he would be their starter. So their line is just not looking good. I know the Niners have injuries, but Bosa is there and they still have enough solid players on the D-line that I think Stafford is just going to be in a world of hurt again. I mean, that's just been the story of the year for them, and I don't think it's going to change very much. Debo has been ruled out for this game, but that's why you make the trade for Christian McCaffrey. He can come right in And I think he had a bigger workload last week than we were expecting. So I fully expect CMC to have a full workload in this game. I think he's going to have a big game. I think Shanahan has already figured out every single way to use him possible, and it's going to be very fun to watch. Yeah, I like the Niners, even though this is on the road.
And I'm right there. I was shocked watching how much I sat him in fantasy, thinking that he really wasn't going to get more than like 10 snaps. And even if that was going to be like actual touches is another story. And the dude comes in, I'm thinking, all right, they're like going to set him up with one package. And they didn't. You can tell he's obviously a really smart dude. They're talking about how they gave him the playbook on the plane the day before.
Yep.
And he comes in and plays as much as he did. Now, it wasn't a full workload, but you could tell he came in and he actually showed some flashes that this is going to be fun to watch. This is going to be a lot of fun because this almost seems like Kyle Shanahan's missing piece. He's been looking for that back he can hang his hat on for a long time. I feel like we've always talked about, San Francisco is this, running back by committee team, and they love to do that. I don't think that that's the case. I think that Kyle Shanahan has specific tastes in running backs. So when he will fall in and out of love with guys, because you'd have the, Jeff Wilson arc, you had the Raheem Mostert arc, you had all these different arcs for these dudes, and they all came and go. They came and went. And now you got pretty much the premier back in the NFL that can do it all. So hopefully he stays healthy. I mean, that's a question, but the Kyle Shanahan system is built for a guy like Christian, and I think that he's going to make all the difference towards a Rams defense that has kind of been a little porous too. They haven't been playing up to their usual standards as well. And hey, San Francisco is still really, really good team. Even when they have injuries, they still play really great ball, and it's because they're coached really well. And I'm going to stop gushing over Kyle Shanahan because I think it's starting to become a little weird in like a theme of our show that I really, really like Kyle Shanahan. But Kyle, if you're ever, box seats, like, you know where to find me.
If you ever just want to switch teams and go to Denver, I think that's what Mason's really saying.
Kyle, come home, baby boy. Come home, Kyle. We miss you. Come home. But anyway, so that does it for that one. A good matchup. And, I think another matchup that I think we're more interested in this matchup because we've taken like an interesting amount of money on both of these teams, and now they match up. So we're looking at the Giants at the Seattle Seahawks. You're liking over 44.5. I'm a little shocked that this is the number, but given how the Giants have played offensively, it does make a little bit of sense. What are you seeing that highlights this over here?
I'm seeing two teams who are very good at running the ball and two defenses that are atrocious at stopping the run. I have a bunch of stats here, so give me a second. Let's see. The Giants' rush defense, they're allowing the most yards per carry in the league. They're allowing the fifth most rushing yards per game. And then on the Seattle side, their rush defense is allowing the sixth most yards per carry and the third most rushing yards per game. These rush defenses are so bad, but then you have Saquon Barkley and Kenneth Walker who are performing extraordinarily well this year. So I'm just seeing a lot of rushing potential for both sides, and long runs, explosive runs, which is why I think there'll be points. And then I think Geno Smith and Daniel Jones have been serviceable quarterbacks. They can get one or two passing touchdowns pretty easily against weak defenses. Points.
And I was utterly shocked last week because in our NFL versus piece, we highlighted the Seattle and Chargers total. So when we looked at that one, I highlighted that I had more trust in the Chargers to hold down a Seattle offense because they're at home. They still have a lot of playmakers. And what did they do? They torched them. They absolutely torched them. And so my big thing is Seattle's for real on offense. Good defenses should probably, watch a little extra film if they've got Seattle on the schedule because Geno Smith is doing it. They're doing it on the ground. They're playing well-balanced football, which is so corny to say because we've proven that balance is more or less a myth, but they are doing it to a really high level, and it's fun to watch. their games are fun to watch. So I'm interested to see it. I'm right there with you. I think that 44.5, like we said, is kind of low for a Seattle total, but it's kind of right there for a Giants total. So I think it really is pointing right to the over. And it makes a lot of sense because here on Betting Pros, we see that the over is actually at 64%, which makes a lot of sense, which is right there what we were talking about. So, And then on to our last game of the night. And this is one I'm taking solo here, and it's because I'm back on the Bengals bandwagon, baby. How's that for the alliteration? So I'm back on the Bengals bandwagon, and they are on the road here in Cleveland, -3.5. They are a field goal road favorite. And frankly, what it comes down to is I think everything is clicking for Cincinnati. Cincinnati is right where we thought they were going to be week 1. It just took them a little time to get back to it. I think that they had to wear off that long, hangover of, hey, we're really good. Teams might kind of roll over for us. And they're like, oh, no, we got to come out and prove it. We got to come out and play. And they've done that the last handful of weeks. They absolutely torched Atlanta, which we kind of saw coming. And now I think they run into a Cleveland team that is in a similar position. They're a similar matchup, a team that wants to run the football, a team that we've highlighted as well as Jacoby Brissett plays. He plays just as bad at points too, where he throws some back-breaking interceptions late in the game. That's something that you've highlighted a lot and has actually come to fruition when we've taken a lot of these recent Cleveland picks. And what we've hung our hat on a lot when we think about Cleveland, at least offensively, is we've taken advantage of David Njoku a lot. Well, as we've discovered, or at least I discovered when I started peeling back more layers to this game, and that you highlighted last night, is that they're not going to have David Njoku in this one. And they're going to be pretty, up shit's creek, for lack of a better term. And I think they're going to have to dig themselves out of a hole because they haven't been that great defensively. Joe Burrow just threw for a season high. I haven't even checked if it's a career high. It was like a gajillion yards. So it has a huge potential to be his career high. And I think that they're clicking on all phases of the game. And they're going to be a hard team to beat for even really good teams. And right now, the Browns just are not a really good team. They're a team that can control the clock a little bit, but they're not good enough on defense to have it equate to leads or wins or whatever you need to be a successful team running the ball. So I don't see any way that this one pans out. I think that it's an easy 7 on the road for the Bengals in Cleveland. And I get that this is also a rivalry game, quote unquote, a rivalry game. But, Cincinnati's traveling 2 hours, an hour and a half. Is this even really a road game? I actually question what the mix in the crowd will be. I bet you it's going to get pretty loud. So, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But that about does it for us in week 8. I'm actually going to put my graphic away because I always forget to close it. And then we talk as little squares as opposed to that. Oh, we have some questions. Thomas has a question. Let's see, Thomas. I'm going to be honest with you, Thomas. We're the betting guys. And our start-sit stuff is probably a little to be desired. But you can always head into our Discord, Thomas, and into our Patreon, Nonsense FF, and that's how you get access to all of our fantasy guys. They'll answer all your questions, and they'll talk your ear off. They'll give you a million things. But Thomas says, flex Wan'Dale Robinson or Greg Davis, and would you say Robinson is a safer floor? PPR, thanks. What are you seeing when you see this one, V?
This is probably, Gabriel Davis has been very explosive this year. He's been explosive the last couple of years. Lots of high potential. I think that's why he's kind of saying is Robinson the safer floor. I can definitely see that, him being the safer floor. You can probably get a few more catches than Davis can, but I think Davis has a much higher potential to not even score one touchdown, but to score multiple touchdowns. So if you want the upside, you want to take Davis. If you're okay being a little bit more conservative, I guess I can understand the Wan'Dale Robinson play.
Yeah, I'm right there with you too. I think that also when you just look at those offenses, I'm a little bit more on what Gabe Davis is going to do in that offense versus anything that, Wan'Dale Robinson can, put out. I think that they're just in different levels. I wouldn't necessarily put them on the same tiers, but I mean, everybody's roster is different. So it makes a lot of sense why this could be a vital question to your matchup. So right there with you. Oh, no, you're good, Thomas. No worries at all, man. We definitely like to take any of the questions. Also, you know, we win you some money over here that'll pay for your subscription to the IN Discord. So, you know, definitely stop by. We love to have new people for sure. No problem at all. But anyway, that does wrap us up for week 8. We're going to be back same time next week. And if you haven't checked it out, go check out our show at halftime of Thursday Night Football over underdogs. We hit all of our picks in week 7. V is a massive 75% picking on underdogs. Pick 'em. You want to go get his picks. I promise you, won't steer you wrong. You can check out everything the IN betting team has over at importantnonsense.com. And like I said, our Patreon to get into our Discord, talk to all the fantasy guys, get all your start sit, every question answered. Also, you get all of our picks right into the Discord. We do awesome little threads. We hit a huge number in our thread last week too. And then last but certainly not least, shop.importantnonsense.com to get all of your IN merch. Use promo code LOCK. Yes, we finally got a promo code. I had to chase Steve down for it. I said, Steve, the people want merch and we need to give it to him. No, I'm just kidding. He gave it right away. But anyway, so that does it for us. V, do you have any parting words for the people at home?
Not too much. I can't believe we're kind of already close to the halfway point of the season, but it's been fun and it's going to continue to be fun. So, you know, tune in next week.
And a special shout out to Thomas. We'll see you in the Discord, Thomas. I like to see it, buddy. We like to see it. Well, until next time, everybody, keep up the nonsense and we'll catch you next time.